morning, everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for listening in today. It's a beautiful day here. We actually are in our studio here on the East Coast in Burlington, New Jersey. It's going to be a great show today. We're going to hear from Michael Mancuso, owner of Searching for the Truth. Mike's going to talk to you today about technology and how it changed the industry for private investigators and the services that private investigators are now able to offer private clients. We also have Debbie O'Hara. We asked her to come back and join us today. Debbie is the Director of Investigations for Accredited. It's going to be a great show today because what we're going to do is incorporate a lot of Debbie's dealings with private clients and the cases and so forth that involve technology, and we're going to share with you the interaction between Debbie and Michael from Searching for the Truth on the type of different services they utilize. So we're going to get started today, and again, thank you for everybody for tuning in today. Again, we got Michael Mancuso from Searching for the Truth here in the studio today. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you and I go back a long way, probably. Sure, late 80s from when you started doing polygraph work.
Right.
So I know you have prior law enforcement experience. Just, if you can, for the listeners, let them know a little bit about who you are, your history, and how you formed Searching for the Truth and what type of company it is.
Okay, Mike Mancuso, and thank you for letting me come on to the show today, John. I appreciate it. Hello, Deb.
Hi.
I was in law enforcement for 25 years. Since 1983, I went into law enforcement. I was with the state of New Jersey as a state investigator. And when I started there, I was an investigator, and as things evolved, I became a polygraph examiner, and later went into computer and mobile forensics and worked out of the computer and mobile forensic unit. In regards to privately, I started my business doing private forensics while I was still in law enforcement with permission from the state of New Jersey, just doing polygraphs. It started with polygraphs, and John was one of my first customers that I did polygraphs for, infidelity polygraphs, back in the late 80s. We did polygraph examinations basically in the infidelity spectrum. The husband thinks that the wife's being unfaithful, or the vice versa. They would request to submit to a polygraph, and we would do the polygraph examination. And that's why I named the business Searching for the Truth back in the late 80s, because it started as basically just polygraphs. And then as I moved into computer and mobile forensics, well, mainly computer forensics, I offered that into the private sector. Well, hey, we can examine hard drives in criminal cases. Why can't we examine them in matrimonial cases and in child custody cases, and recover email, text messages, pictures, images, stuff of that nature, internet travel on the internet. So at that point, I started offering computer forensics to the private sector. I had permission from the state of New Jersey as long as it was a non-criminal matter. And with computer forensics and the matrimonial, there's some stipulations that occur. If a husband or wife wants to get the computer examined, they have to own the computer. So a wife can hire us to do the husband's computer, the husband can hire us to do the wife's computer, as long as it's owned and it's matrimonial property. A situation where somebody's hiring us to go image or do an examination on a girlfriend or boyfriend's computer, we can't do that because they can't sign a consent form that they own it. So it's mainly a matrimonial service that we were offering. A husband can hire us to do the wife's computer or vice versa, or maybe they want the children's computer done to check to see where the children are going on the internet. It's not always an infidelity. It could be somebody's checking into what their children are doing, and want to keep track of that and monitor that. With computer forensics and the matrimonial, what we're doing is making an image of the hard drive, an exact image copy, and a lot of times we have to go out to the residence to do it, or if it's a laptop, maybe meet the client in a parking lot. And we have what's called a mobile service, where we can operate right out of our van, where we can make images, exact forensic images of the computer. The person doesn't know, or the client's spouse or husband or wife doesn't know the computer's even been touched. We don't do nothing to the computer. We don't turn on the computer. We physically remove the hard drive. We put it on a write blocking device, so we don't change any dates and times or stamps. And we don't edit the hard drive in any way. We make an exact forensic image onto a sterile hard drive, and we take that back to the lab for examination. And what we can recover are emails, deleted emails, internet histories, what websites have been visited, text messages, messenger services, Yahoo, Gmail, MSN, deleted image files, webcam files, quite a bit. And then what we do is put that onto a DVD and provide it to the client or to the detective agency, and then they provide it to the client. A lot of information can be retrieved off the computer, and many times computers nowadays are like the main the communication device. I mean, from the 90s up to the early 2000s, it was their #1 communication device, especially for infidelity with the messenger services and the email. Now we've moved into the mobile devices, your iPhones, your Androids, and we're doing examinations of them now and recovering quite a bit on text messages, voicemail. We even get past that. We can extract the passcodes for the user. So forensics has been a real big thing in the matrimonial.
Yeah, these are some good points, Mike, that you make. First of all, let me recap on some of the points. The legality issues, you're right, on hard drives or cell phones and so forth. You know, we get calls all the time, and Debbie, if you want to chirp in on this, clearly it's a legal issue if you're hired to do a hard drive analysis, or you know, what we used to call dump a cell phone hard drive or so forth. If you don't own it, if it's not in your name, that's illegal. Both it would be a civil tort and a criminal. Could be a criminal charge too, correct?
Right. Well, we with the computers and with the phones, in most cases it has to be marital property where the husband and wife both own it in order for us to do this type of forensic service. If it's a situation where somebody's calling us, they want to do a girlfriend or boyfriend's phone, it's in that boyfriend or girlfriend's name, we can't touch that because they don't legally own it. So what we do is we verify that the person hiring us does own the device. Okay, they also sign a consent form swearing that they own the device, and then we go ahead and image the device. We don't get involved in installing spyware or snoopware on any devices because that's totally illegal, even if they own the device. And what I mean by that is, a husband can hire us to image and do an examination of his wife's computer or cell phone, as long as they legally own it, because we're getting the information after it's been deleted or it's still stored on that device. Okay, but once you start installing third-party spyware programs on mobile devices or snoopware, you're actually intercepting a wired communication the same time that the user is getting it. And that is totally against the law, I think, in every state. It's a third-degree crime in the state of New Jersey. It's a violation of your state wiretap statutes. So we don't get involved in any type of snoopware, spyware installations at all on any device for anyone.
And okay? that's good for our listeners to know, because nowadays, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, many people can go right to the internet and buy a keystroke program. Sure. Or an application, download an application, or they can put a spyware to monitor the screen on the computer, and that's being captured as the communication is being transformed.
Yes, sir.
And that is illegal.
Right, and we run, there's many different software companies out there. I mean, it sells snoopware, spyware, and it's very effective. The software works well, but what the user has to understand, even if they own the phone, they don't have a right to intercept somebody's communications. Yeah, if they own the phone and they want us to image it, they own it, image it, and get all the information that's already stored on or deleted, yes, we can do that, and that's legal. But the minute you start intercepting wire communications, and if you ever look at some of these websites, they tell you on there that check with your local and state laws because it may be illegal against the law to use this stuff, and that's 100% right. In every state that I know of, it's against the law.
Oh, yeah, they'll sell you anything on the internet and pass the liability onto the buyer.
Right, exactly.
And most buyers don't read that fine print or to check with the state and federal laws.
Right, and we do get some cases like this in the state of New Jersey. If a parent hires us to put spyware on their child's phone, as long as the child's under 18 and the parents own it, we can legally do that in the state of New Jersey. Again, it has to be the child's phone, the parents have to own the service, and they can allow us and legally put spyware on a child's phone, which will monitor text messages going out, text messages coming in, phone calls going out, phone calls coming in. Most of the spyware has a GPS locator in it, but that's the only criteria that has, as far as installing that. And another service that John offers, and we do a lot in the matrimonial, is the eavesdrop detection. Years ago, eavesdrop detection was doing a sweep, electronic sweep of the house or the business or the office to find hidden devices. And what I mean, there's many, many hidden devices. There's audio transmitting devices and there's video transmitting devices. It may be a pinhole camera in the ceiling or a digital recorder in the executive office plant in the executive's office. And that's what we would do. We would come in with electronic detect equipment and we would sweep the office for any type of hardwired or wireless device. And it's a lengthy service, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of equipment and a lot of training. But we find many devices. It could be a pinhole audio transmitter. Now that service is expanded because now we have mobile devices, and everybody has a mobile device in their hand. They're constantly communicating. All their business secrets, all their matrimonial secrets are all on the mobile device. But now spyware comes into play here. It could be where the business executive goes out to lunch with a secretary and she wants to borrow his phone for a couple minutes and she installs snoopware or spyware on it in a matter of minutes. Or it could be the husband that puts spyware on his wife's mobile device. Which adds a service that we provide is debugging of a mobile device. We bring the device into the lab, we do a forensic examination on it where we physically extract all the application and non-application files, and we identify each and every process running on that device. And if we do find the spyware or the snoopware, we try to go a step further because let's face it, if you have mobile spyware on a mobile device, you're going to want to access this to see what type of information is on there. And there's two ways you can access it. The eavesdropper would go into a website and log in where he bought the software, and in real time he can monitor the device. Or with some programs, they email the eavesdropper a report. Every so many hours he elects when he wants the report. It has all the text messages, email, locations. And what we try to do is once we find the spyware on there, we try to extract the email address or IP number where this information is going. So we can try to track it back to the person that installed it on there.
Pretty scary stuff. We're going to take a break pretty soon here. I got to tell you, Mike, this is pretty scary stuff. I would hate to be married to you because with your technology and your know-how, it's you definitely experienced. We're going to be going to break here, and when we come back, we're going to have Debbie join in on the conversation with us. One last thing that we'll come back to after break is Michael commented on two important points. Is in the world of infidelity, communications are needed to continue to keep an infidelity alive. So we're going to talk about that when we come back, okay? So stay tuned and we'll see you when we come back. All right, thank you.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated offers a wide array of investigative services to law firms, insurance companies, individuals, private organizations, and corporations. Our goal is to reach the case objectives and resolve the client's issues as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Local investigative services include identity, wrongful death, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and divorce, support, custody, and family investigations. For more information, call or click today. Accredited Investigations, when you need to know.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated. Professional, licensed private detectives with over 28 years of experience, providing comprehensive nationwide services. Our extensive and diverse team offers discreet and confidential consultations. Our state-of-the-art technology and investigative resources allow us to stay in front of other investigative companies. We welcome the opportunity to earn your trust and deliver you the best service in the industry. Call Accredited Investigations Incorporated at 866-821-5258.
You're listening to the Private Eye Nightline with host John Ciacchio. To ask a question or express a concern about today's program, please call toll-free 1-866-472-5788, 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to info@pinightline.com. Now, back to the show.
Hi, thank you for coming back. Again, my name's John Ciacchio. I am the host for the Private Eye Nightline. Here with us today is Michael Mancuso from Searching for the Truth, and Debbie O'Hara, who is the Director of Investigations for Accredited Investigations, Inc., who is our sponsor for our show. Prior to break, we were getting engaged in some good talks about everything from forensics on hard drives, computers, and cell phones. Mike, I want to go back. Communications in infidelity is, especially if you're married and you need to covert and hide your communications, years ago it used to be a beeper, the way to get a hold of somebody and so forth. Nowadays it's the computer and the cell phone. And correct me if I'm wrong, with the mobile applications and the cell phones the way they are, it's more on the cell phones nowadays than the computers.
Yeah, back when we started in this business, as you know, John, infidelity investigation was mainly video surveillance. Okay, most of your information, there wasn't even cell phones. They were so expensive back in the late 80s that nobody had cell phones. I don't think they really got popular probably to like the mid-90s, early 90s. But everything was video surveillance. You had to, you know, follow the couple or your suspects and video them. Things have changed. First, the computers came about and started to become a big form of communication, and that was probably through early 2000. Now, I think the computers have been surpassed by the mobile phones. And in the smartphones, when I say a smartphone, I'm talking about a phone with an operating system. Your iPhones, which have your iOS operating systems, your Androids, your Windows CE phones, your Symbian phones. They're a very, very big source of information because, not like a regular cell phone, they have large storage capacities. They have large storage capacities for your message and your text message programs. You can use your social networks from there, your Facebooks, your Twitter. You have a large capacity for image files. They have built-in video cameras, regular, standard cameras. So there's a lot of information they store, and it seems right now that they're your biggest communications device for infidelity. And in this business, with infidelity, you see a lot of things happen over the years, and in some cases, the person, when it's a serious case going on where there's a serious relationship going, there's always a need to communicate, and we watch this through years of experience. If it's a married man or a married man going with a girl that's not married, his need to communicate with her all day is very big. And what we've learned from this is, I guess because she really isn't married and doesn't have no ties, and he has a wife and kids, that he feels when he's not with her, she may be meeting somebody else. So he's going to communicate with her all day, right up to "I love you" before I go to bed, or in the morning, first thing in the morning, "I love you," and it's constant, all day long. And a lot of times the other spouse will see on the phone bill that there's a lot of text messages going to one phone number back and forth, but the phone bills don't tell what the text message says or the body of the text message. It's just that that phone number has been communicated. And in forensics, we can recover these text messages and actually give to that party exactly what was said and what the conversations were about.
Very interesting, yeah. I would tell my clients, the spouse, whether it be a man or woman, first thing they do would, as soon as they leave the house, is jump on the cell phone. Second thing they would do is say goodbye to them right before they got home. And usually there's evidence there of the text, whether it be, so it's interesting. Debbie, in the business of investigations, do you get a lot of calls about computers and cell phones? I see the business growing, but you've been doing this for a long time. Do you see that being a big part of the investigation business now for private clients?
Yes, we do. And in fact, sometimes it will assist you in surveillance. Because sometimes through the emails or the text messages, they might be setting up hotel reservations or airline, purchasing airline tickets.
Oh, that's a
and
good point.
planning a rendezvous, and that gives us a heads up on which day to go out, do surveillance.
So, so what you're saying is, the different applications on the cell phone. You're right. They can make travel arrangements, set up dinner reservations, or just coordinate meetings, dates and times when they can meet the person that they're seeing. How do you? Let's say I'm a client and I call the office and I say I own a computer and I want to look at my husband's email. What do? You call Mike and just walk the listeners through the process. How does that work?
Yeah, we try to get a date and a time scheduled when the other person's not going to be home. We usually tell them to give us about 2-3 hours to be able to get in and copy it, and and then Mike goes back to the lab like he said, and he digs and data carves and everything to dig deep and find anything that's on the computer. Now, some people think, well, I'm going to go in, I'm going to delete everything, it's gone, in case somebody copies my computer, they're not going to find anything. Well, Mike does. 9 out of 10, 9.5% of the time, I'd say. There's deleted emails, he retrieves thousands, text messages. We just did one the other day, we got over 5,000 text messages.
Wow. Wow, I bet you that client was happy.
Oh, thrilled. I mean, they really believe once they hit delete, it's gone.
Well, it's a great tool because, like you said, the intelligence you learn from it could give you a great insight to maybe identifying who the person is, the dates, times, look for the patterns when they're meeting, and so forth. And Mike, I bet you've seen some crazy stuff because I know, some of the jobs, some people have no problem sending photographs back and forth, and sometimes in a compromising situation, whether it be a sexual photo or what. I bet you've seen it all.
Yeah, we with the webcams and that, we get quite a bit of pictures going back and forth, whether it be through a text message. Now with the text messages, you can send an image, or whether it be a live webcam when he or she was sitting in front of the computer. I had a recent case where I just finished up where every time this guy was sexual with his girlfriend, he videoed it with his iPhone. And never knowing that his wife was going to get a hold of the iPhone and get it to us. So there was no surveillance that had to be done at that point. I just want to step back. Jack had really mentioned something earlier that kind of got things me thinking for a minute. With these text messages, with the iPhones or any of the mobile products, the woman or the man could actually be with their wife or their husband and carry the conversation on through text messages with their husband or wife sitting right there because it's silent. It's not like years ago you had to run out to a payphone and constantly run out and call, or you couldn't call with the husband or wife in front of you. Now you can actually carry the conversation on with a mobile device right in front of the other party with the children sitting right there because it's silent, it's text. Or be in the next room on a computer texting. So things have really changed over the years.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. Back, we used to rely heavily on surveillance, and we would document the subject. Even if they weren't seeing the other person, they would go to use pay phones and look for a behavior pattern. But you're right, Michael. Nowadays, they can sit right in their living room, put their cell phone on silent mode, and text away.
And I think when we started in this business, it was usually at the time 80% males cheating or being unfaithful, 20% females. Now from my experience, and John, I think you might have seen the same thing, it's about 50-50 now.
Yeah, it is. And Debbie, maybe you can tell us, with your client roster, what do you see? Are you seeing more women than men, more men than women, or?
No, it's about even on both sides.
It is. And you're right, Michael. I see it swinging, that it's 50-50. And Mike, tell us about when you discover, do you get a lot of jobs for pornography? Because correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, I remember we used to get calls all the time to see if their spouse was addicted to pornography or in
Yes.
our websites, you know, communicating, setting up, you know, not relationships, but actual escort services, you know, prostitutes and so forth, all over the internet. Do you get a lot of that?
Yeah, I get a lot of situations where husbands or wives would call. They want to know what websites their spouse is visiting. And sometimes we even get employers that call a lot. They want to know what their employees are doing on there. Are they looking at pornography sites during work hours? Are they starting a business online on the employer's computer? But getting back to the husband and wife thing, yeah, we get a lot of cases like that. They go into pornography. I mean, we have cases where the other party is changing their lifestyle, where they're looking at somebody of the same sex. We come across quite a bit of cases like that. In the business, we're never surprised by what we come across. What seems to be a very big thing with attorneys in child custody matters is the pornography on the computer. If the husband or the wife is looking at illicit websites, if they're constantly looking at pornography, if the subject has daughters and he's looking at young girls, maybe not, I'm not saying child pornography, which we know is against the law, but girls of young age that really are adults, seems to be a very good child custody tool with the attorneys. It seems that it's very effective in child custody, what's on the computer and what the party may be viewing.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell you, in our business, custody issues are just as big as infidelity cases. And in a minute, we're going to take a break, but we're going to talk about that when we come back. And I think it's important to know that there are other tools that you can now use or incorporate in an investigation if you're in a heavy custody battle with your ex-spouse. So what I want listeners to do is stay tuned. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into custody issues. So again, my name is John Ciacchio. I am your host for the Private Eye Nightline, and we'll see you after break. Thank you.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated offers a wide array of investigative services to law firms, insurance companies, individuals, private organizations, and corporations. Our goal is to reach the case objectives and resolve the client's issues as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Local investigative services include identity, wrongful death, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and divorce, support, custody, and family investigations. For more information, call or click today. Accredited Investigations, when you need to know.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated. Professional, licensed private detectives with over 28 years of experience, providing comprehensive nationwide services. Our extensive and diverse team offers discreet and confidential consultations. Our state-of-the-art technology and investigative resources allow us to stay in front of other investigative companies. We welcome the opportunity to earn your trust and deliver you the best service in the industry. Call Accredited Investigations Incorporated at 866-821-5258.
You're listening to the Private Eye Nightline with host John Ciacchio. To ask a question or express a concern about today's program, please call toll-free 1-866-472-5788, 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to info@pinightline.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, thank you. Again, John Ciacchio. I am your host for the Private Eye Nightline. Here today is Michael Mancuso for the company called Searching for the Truth. And we have Debbie O'Hara from Accredited Investigations, Inc., who is our sponsor for our show today. All right, so when we before break, we were talking about custody issues, and Mike brought out a good point where attorneys are concentrating more on the forensic side of what's recovered from the hard drive or from the cell phone to see if it can aid them in a custody to taint the credibility of the parent. That's interesting because several years ago it was basically just doing surveillance after surveillance to look for, you know, the typical stuff, drinking and driving, any behavior that can be questionable around the children. But now, you know, what they do on the computer, it can be captured, and it's interesting. If a spouse is addicted to porn, it will show it all: the dates, the times, how long they, you know, they're on the computer, or you know, who they're seeing or talking to as well. Debbie, on the custody side, do you get a lot of requests for hard drive analysis or cell phone hard drive?
I'd say about a third, maybe a third of the calls for that. But the one thing that is pretty interesting, that Mike, he's able to tell, right, Mike, if the picture was taken, if you find it on the hard drive, it was taken by the subject themselves, or if they received it through the internet.
Yeah, and many times. Well, first of all, going back to what John said, with the attorneys, we get calls all the time for this child custody. You know, they want to know if the party's going through pornography websites. One of the easiest deleted files to recover, either on a mobile device or on a computer, are image files, JPEG image files. And we do a process called data carving, where we can recover a lot of deleted files. And we're not only just getting the websites that are visited, we're actually recovering what was viewed while on that website. And you know, if Daddy's home on all these pornography websites, and his little daughter's going on a computer right after him to go into her Barbie program or what have you, that shows illicit activity, and it can become a child custody tool to work against the father in a child custody case. In regards to what you had mentioned, Deb, about the phones and the mobile devices, yeah, we do get a lot of image files going back and forth, and we recover a lot of image files from these devices. And you know, and as far as the photos, if you take a picture with a cellular phone, it retains a meta tag of when, the date and time the photo was taken, and it's still on the phone with the image. It's a separate file you have to recover. So we can determine it came from that phone and what time and where. And if the phone has GPS, we can also, like on the iPhones, recover exactly where the person was, what town, what country, what state they were in when they took the photo. Photos recovered on the computer, a lot of times we can determine if they came in as an email attachment, they came in from a webcam, or they just came off the internet. So yes, that's correct.
So they don't have a leg to stand on if they turn around and they refuse, say, I never took that picture.
Yeah, it'd be
There's
pretty
a way to
hard,
prove
yes,
it.
yes.
Sometimes just the evidence itself will speak for itself. If I remember on some of the hard drives you did and everything, if you look at some of the pictures, you can tell if it was a commercial grade, if it was
Sure.
downloaded off the internet or so forth. But some of the stuff that what I call homegrown, you know, that's not altered or commercially enhanced. You'll see a lot of the stuff, JPEGs, which are photographs, are just basically, you can tell that they were personal photographs just by looking at them versus what would be downloaded off the internet.
Sure, that's definitely correct. And a lot of the phone pictures we're recovering now, you could actually see the person in the picture actually taking a picture of themselves and sending it out from the phone to their significant other. And looking in the mirror, taking it, we come across a lot of different scenarios that are we could tie right down to that mobile device and who sent it.
So whether it be in infidelity or custody, a lot of this stuff can be used to taint the parents. You know, if you document questionable behavior, whether it be, you know, with addiction to porn or their meeting with escorts or even the act of infidelity, the date and time, if you can document it, when they could have or should have been with the children or so forth, it can be used to impeach their ability to parent.
Sure.
You know, certainly their moral compass could be attacked in that custody are, yeah, the courts don't want to see infidelity nowadays.
No, they don't, not so much, but let's face it, it's all going into the courtroom, John, and the judge is gonna see everything, so he's human too, so he's gonna develop an opinion on what caused the divorce, or what caused the problems which led up to divorce. So even though I think you're saying it's a no-fault state, I still think everything that we can get as far as pornography, infidelity is still useful somewhere in the case.
It is. I mean, let's face it, Debbie, and you could probably tell us, a lot of calls, I know when I would say calls, is they weren't even interested in court, they just wanted to know.
That's 100% right.
A lot of clients do. They like the pictures, they like the video, because they want to see who this other person is.
And I guess that's why the name of his business is Searching for
Right.
the Truth, because it's
Yes.
And that is such a true statement from the experience in this business, that just wanting to know, clients will go to no end as far as costs, time, or effort to find out, hey, if it's a loved one, that's the most important thing to them. Are they having an affair? Where are they going? What's he doing for her he didn't do for me? Or what's she doing for him she didn't do for me? And I believe in information business, and here the information we get is worth more than anything to that client.
Yeah, I know when I deal with clients, you know, I tell them, you know, you need to walk with the truth. You know, even if there's an infidelity in your marriage, before you decide to exit a marriage, understand what you're up against, and then make those decisions, whether it be counseling, whether it be an attorney for a divorce, but find the truth. And once you find that truth, then you're in a position to make the right decisions.
Sure.
In custody battles, you know, if you're turning your children over, or you're court ordered under a visitation order to turn your children over, you better make sure that where you're sending those children, it's a safe environment. So if there was a computer from the marriage, you may want to look at doing a hard drive on it to see what would, and if any behavior was questionable. Let's go back to electronic sweeps. Okay, I know in the domestic, the private clients, a lot of times they'll put those devices just to see what their spouses are doing themselves. They'll even go to the extent of putting recorders in vehicles and so forth. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know in the state, different states have different laws.
Yeah, sure. What you said, John, is a big thing now. Information is back to gaining information, getting that phone conversation, getting the location of where the person's going. We're getting many cases now, and it doesn't have, if it's a corporate type of atmosphere when you're going to do a sweep, you're usually looking at high-end devices. A professional eavesdropper, and a lot of times, is going to build his own devices, and he's going to plant two devices, hoping if you pick off the first one, the second one you're going to stop there, and the second one is what's going to get you. Executive offices, conference rooms. But in the matrimonial, it's a whole different ballgame. It's usually not going to be a professional eavesdropper. It's going to be that husband or that wife or that third party doing something simple, a digital recorder that you buy in Radio Shack for $99. It's the size of a pen, totally voice activated. It copies the files to a little mini SD card or downloads through USB. They throw it under the seat of the car, or they throw it inside the house on top of the kitchen countertop. And anytime that person's in there talking, it automatically picks up the voice. Well, that's one of the biggest things in this business is the digital recorders. However, it's against the law. Whenever you tape a conversation you're not part of, okay, that you're not part of in the state of New Jersey, you broke the law. Okay, it's like putting a tape recorder on a phone. You're intercepting a wired communication that you're not part of. In New Jersey, and I'm only speaking about New Jersey, if two people are talking in person, it's a one consent state. Only one person has to consent to the audio. But the minute you put a tape recorder or a recording device somewhere where you're not part of the conversation, you're breaking the law because you're taping a third-party conversation. And now that's New York. I mean, that's New Jersey. Other states differ. Pennsylvania is even tougher. In Pennsylvania, you can't even tape somebody in person. Both people have to consent. But in every state that I know of, third-party tapes, which is when you put a recorder somewhere and you're no longer there and you're taping everything that happens in that area as far as audio, I think, from my knowledge now, don't quote me, I'm not an attorney, it's against the law in every state.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and usually with marriages, if it's infidelity, the emotions are so raw, people just aren't thinking. They're not.
Or they just don't know. They just don't know that they're breaking the law until it's too late. And many times, I mean, on a weekly basis, I'm getting calls from attorneys. Look, I got a case. They're not interested in me at this point. They're interested in finding the client saying to them, look, my husband, or the husband saying my wife knows everywhere I go. They're reciting stuff from conversations I've had, and there's no way they could. So right away, our biggest thing now are the digital recorders, something maybe in the bedroom, maybe something in a family room where they talk, something in the car, or software on the computer, spyware on the phone, and that's where our business is lying now, is in the matrimonial, because these items are readily available out there, and clients are using them. They're using them.
Pretty scary stuff. How many do you find a lot of the recorders in the electronic sweeps you do?
Yeah, we find, see, years ago, recorders were in solid state. Okay, and what I mean by that, they were all separate parts. They had what was called a bias oscillator in them. So if they were on, we could detect them with a frequency with a frequency sweep. Now we have to use extended equipment. We got to do a detailed physical search because everything's solid state, and you don't have that bias oscillator anymore. So yeah, we find a lot of digital recorders. One of the biggest things right now is the snoop and spyware on the computers and on the mobile devices. And yeah, it's being used, and the attorneys are hiring us all the time to find it and locate it, and then it gives the other party a chance to sign a criminal complaint.
Wow, it's pretty scary stuff. All right, they're telling me we need to take another break. So what we're going to do is take a break, and when we come back, we'll stay with this stuff. But Mike, I'm telling you, this is scary stuff, boy. All right, so again, stay tuned, listeners. We'll be back after break. Thank you.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated offers a wide array of investigative services to law firms, insurance companies, individuals, private organizations, and corporations. Our goal is to reach the case objectives and resolve the client's issues as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Local investigative services include identity, wrongful death, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and divorce, support, custody, and family investigations. For more information, call or click today. Accredited Investigations, when you need to know.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated. Professional, licensed private detectives with over 28 years of experience, providing comprehensive nationwide services. Our extensive and diverse team offers discreet and confidential consultations. Our state-of-the-art technology and investigative resources allow us to stay in front of other investigative companies. We welcome the opportunity to earn your trust and deliver you the best service in the industry. Call Accredited Investigations Incorporated at 866-821-5258.
You're listening to the Private Eye Nightline with host John Ciacchio. To ask a question or express a concern about today's program, please call toll-free 1-866-472-5788, 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to info@pinightline.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, thank you to our listeners for staying with us. We're back live again. Again, I want to introduce to you our guest speaker, Michael Mancuso from Searching for the Truth. Mike, before we start, I'm going to let you plug your company. Why don't you give your phone number so they can reach you directly?
Yeah, Searching for the Truth Investigations, toll-free, 866-325-6655, out of Trenton, New Jersey.
I can tell you, you're definitely going to be impressed with Michael's services. I've been using his services probably since the late 80s through 3 different corporations, investigative companies I owned. First-rate work. Guy's amazing with what he can uncover. Debbie, I'm going to come back to you. Say you get a call from a client who's interested in cameras, okay?
In the home.
In the home and so forth. Mm-hmm. And again, that could be for to see what time your spouse is leaving or coming home. Is the spouse bringing anybody into the house for infidelity issues? even used for custody issues. So what happens when you get a call for a client looking to have cameras in a home? There's got to be some legalities. Maybe we can hear from Michael on this, but why don't we tell listeners what happens when a caller calls about cameras?
Yeah, you get a lot of calls, people wanting cameras put in the bedroom especially. That's like the main room in case the spouse or, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, that's where they're going. If they have that gut feeling that they're meeting up in the house when the other one's not home. But Mike, there's a legality, typically a legality issue, right?
Yeah,
There's a cutoff when it comes to installing cameras that we should be able to adhere to.
Yeah, first of all, we don't get involved in any audio installations at all. And there is some cameras coming in from overseas that have built-in parabolic mics which will also pick up audio. We do not do any audio recordings. We do not install any type of audio devices or third-party audio. We don't get involved in audio at all. And then John does it and I don't at all. In regards to video, there's no real laws, and I'm not an attorney, just through my experience I'm talking, in the state of New Jersey that cover video. But you have what's called your right to privacy. And a lot of times we're getting calls for many different reasons for cameras. It could be the hidden camera in the shore house, because the wife thinks when she's not down the shore in the summer or at the vacation that the husband may be bringing a woman into the house or bringing somebody else into the house or be engaging in some type of activity. It could be the parent that wants a camera put in the playroom when they're not home because they think the child may be using illegal drugs. Okay, there's many instances that we get a call for hidden cameras, and there's a guideline that we follow. And when and one other thing, we get calls from attorneys a lot that have a client that they want a child custody cameras because they feel why the husband or the wife, while they're in care of the children, aren't acting right. They may be drinking, they may be using drugs, and we use a guideline. We don't install a camera anywhere where we feel somebody has a right to privacy. Bathrooms, bedrooms, dressing rooms, anything of that nature. We only install hidden cameras. First of all, the person hiring us has to own that dwelling, whether it be an office, a house, whatever. They have to sign a sworn consent that they're the owner of that house or residence where the camera is going to be installed. They're also signed that they're giving us legal permission to install that camera. We'll install a camera in the living room. We'll install a camera in the kitchen, basement, garage, out in the yard, anywhere where we feel that the person is not going to be dressing, undressing, or where it's a public place, And we don't do any installations where a person has a right to personal privacy. And that's what we judge our guidelines on.
So if you're hired by a client to go in to say, hey, my spouse is drinking around my children when I'm not there, you can video that and use it against the parent in a custody battle?
Right, as long as we're going into an area, say the wife's making an allegation to the attorney that her husband is drinking when he's watching the kids in his office. He has an office in the house, he's on a computer, and he's drinking. Well, she may elect to hire us, she owns the house, she signs a consent to put a hidden camera in that office, where it'll record date and time video, either to an SD card or to a hard drive that can be retained later, and the attorney can use that in a child custody case. Yeah, as long as it's an area that it's a public area that everybody goes and meets, that's where we would do the installation.
Okay, well, let's talk about GPS trackers, all right? Because that, I gotta tell you, is really changed our industry. Before, you were just at will on a surveillance, hoping not to lose your subject. But nowadays, private investigators are using GPS trackers. Can you tell us about that, Mike, and what's involved and if it's legal?
Okay, with the GPS, when it first started out, I guess it was in the mid-90s, and John started with some of the first early GPSs. They were data loggers, where there were devices you put on the vehicle. You let it run on the vehicle for about a week, and then you take it off the vehicle and you download it to a computer, and it basically gave you all the locations down to about 500 feet of where the vehicle has been. They were an early type of GPS. Now we moved to as time went on, to the real-time trackers, where you can install a GPS device on a vehicle and go onto the internet and monitor exactly where the vehicle is at. down to about a 500-foot radius. But they've really been improved now, the GPSs, where before the battery life might have only been through for a couple of days, or maybe not even a full day. If you had been able to hardwire it to the battery, then your battery life would actually, it was no battery life, you had all the power you needed. But nowadays the GPSs, I mean, you have some of them out there the size of a small cigarette pack that are good for 30, 60 days. Okay, and how they work is they work off a cellular GSM signal. Okay, and they're only using battery life up when the vehicle's moving. So you're gaining a lot of battery life time, and they become a lot more accurate, where you can even monitor them from your cell phone. So GPS is a very useful tool in law enforcement, and it's also a very useful tool in the private industry with matrimonial or with corporate. If you have a fleet of trucks and you feel that one of your truck drivers may be taking excessive breaks, or he's not doing what his job outlines he's supposed to. But there's also a lot of legality that's involved with the GPS. And that being here in the state of New Jersey, there's no real laws that cover GPS that I know of on the books, but as long as you're putting it on a vehicle that you legally own, and it's registered to you. If you're a business and you own your trucks, you have a right to put a GPS on a truck to monitor where that truck's going. Getting into the matrimonial atmosphere, if the husband and wife both own the vehicles and are registered to them, the husband has a legal right to put a GPS on one of his vehicles, or the wife does, because it is their vehicle. Whether they're monitoring the child, whether they're monitoring the wife, as long as they legally own the vehicle. And the GPS is very accurate. I mean, it tells location. It gives you up to a 2-minute refresh rate. Like every 2 minutes, you can check exactly where the vehicle's at on the internet. So GPS has come a long way, and it's a very good investigative tool as long as it's controlled and it's done legally right. Which I have to say this: I've been working for John. Subcontracting, I worked for him in all his different corporations that he's supervised and owned over the years. And one thing I have to say about John is he's always done everything within the law. I mean, if it was ever even a fine line as far as crossing over to an illegal standpoint, John would turn the job down. Whether a GPS tracker, whether doing a computer that. I remember one time I was on the job and I called John. I said, "Look, I got to the house. The lady said she wanted us to do a laptop computer the husband and wife both owned, and she wanted to have it imaged. She signed a consent that she owned it. I got to the house, I turned over the laptop computer, and I say the name of a private company on the computer, at which time I questioned her, does your husband own this computer? And she said, well, his company does, but it's assigned to him. I immediately called John. He said, kill the job right there. We're not touching it. So one thing, if you're hiring accredited investigations, they're going to protect your interests, and they're always going to stay on the right side of the law.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you plugging us on the show. I really do. And again, I've enjoyed our relationship working together for, it has to be 20 almost 25 years now. So, real interesting. We're about to end the show. So I want to thank Debbie O'Hara from Accredited Investigations for joining us again.
Thank you, John.
And Michael, it's been a pleasure. Again, Michael Mancuso, owner of Searching for the Truth. And Mike, if you would give us your toll-free number again.
866-325-6655. And John, thank you for having me on the show.
It's been great. Pretty scary stuff. I'll tell you. You are a one-man show that does it all. So I got to tell you, really impressed. Okay. So listen, listeners, next week we're going to have another great show. We got Rochelle Spinelli joining us. Rochelle has a master's, I believe it's in criminology. She's going to talk about the different cases that she's serviced and worked on. And rumor has it we may have Tony Maniscola, Inspector General for the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Tony, a lot of years of experience from being a Philadelphia cop to running his own detective agencies, and yes, a former partner of mine. So, great guy. Tony has a lot of knowledge. So, hopefully we'll get him on the show with Rochelle Spinelli, and it will be a great show. Listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week. Again, my name's John Ciacchio, and I am your host for the Private Eye Nightline, and I thank you.
Thanks again for joining us this week. The Private Eye Nightline will be back next Friday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. John Ciacchio hopes to have you tune in again next week.